I left you hanging with the promise of telling you a story about the first feature film I worked on, uh, named The Ballad of Cold Fish. So here we go. Uh, I'd been out of Panico for a year, and I'd worked. I got to know a lot of people from Panico, and there was this American guy who was the first AD on this feature film, and he was trying to get a lot of crew on board. So he got me and a few other people to come on and do this feature film called Cold Fish. Now, this was back in 98.
Okay.
Oh, no, 19. Was it? Yes, it was 98. Yes, because I made my first short film as we were filming this. And so I got on board this as a runner. And I was told it was low budget, that they were filming for 6 weeks, that they would take care of expenses, and it would be deferred payment. Now, at this point, I'd never heard of deferred payment. But for those who don't know, deferred payment is that you get paid after the film is released. So the idea is that if the film makes money, you make money. In this case, I get paid a fee, and it wasn't a percentage. Didn't get any points. So if the film was able to make money, then you get paid. But little did I know that in the industry, this is also known as no payment. Not many people have ever seen anything from a deferred payment.
I know I haven't.
Well, there is a story about the crew of 4 Weddings and a Funeral, that breakout British hit, who never saw a penny.
Wow.
They were all on deferred payment and didn't see a penny from it. And they had to take them to court to actually get some money from it, which was disgusting. But it seems to be that something that happens with deferred payment. I think in the case of Cold Fish was they just did not make any money, because Cold Fish was the biggest pile of shit I have ever worked with.
Okay.
And I'm been on record saying that, so this is not new.
Did it get released? Is this a film that's out there or not?
Yes, it is. It's out there on DVD. It's a white cover, and it has the blurb, "The most controversial film ever."
Oh yeah, I've got 2010.
No, wrong. Cold Fish.
Oh.
You want look up the director, David Fairman. Yeah, he's actually gone on to make quite a few films. That was really surprising. Anyway, so I got brought onto this shoot. They're filming on 16mm, and the story is that this guy is working at a news station, and he wants to become a cameraman. But he just he does like little video jobs on the side, like filming a music video. And it's very realistic. The girls finish their performance, and then he stops filming, and goes, "Good job, girls," and walks off. And you think, oh, is he not going to shoot anymore? Is that it? Is he just going to do the one more? He just walks off and talks to somebody. So by a chance encounter, he meets these 2 video artists who turn violence into art. So the filmmakers had got all this sort of newsreel footage of violence and crashes and death and stuff, and then just tinted them.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, I saw the film. God help me. And they intercut these images into the film itself, just to sort of show you, oh, we're edgy and this is really violent, and ooh.
Okay.
But anyway, so the wife takes an interest in our hero, and drives him to their country manor, where on the way of driving along this country lane, they knock over a tramp, because, as everybody knows, the British countryside is littered with tramps just walking down the road. You will never find them in the city or in shopping centres or by cash machines. They are busy littering the roads of the countryside. And just to warn you, watch out for them, because you know they have no idea of where they are. So they knock over this poor gentleman who's walking down the road, this tramp, and our hero runs off to get an ambulance, and the girl kills the tramp.
Oh.
I wish she killed the lead guy, but no such luck. Films it, and of course this will come back in at the end of the story. So they finally make it to the country manor, where it turns out to be a trick, that our hero is now the sort of point of their new display and exhibition, and they film his reactions. So they stage this elaborate shooting scene, and there's this whole bit where they give him a gun and he's like, it's not real, there's no real bullets in it, and he shoots the husband, and and the wife's down, oh my god, he's dead, and of course the hero is like, oh my god, what have I done? But he's being filmed when this is happening. So the question is, who's holding the camera? Because he's not holding the camera. The wife is down by the husband, and the husband's plain dead. So who the fuck's holding the camera? So he comes back to London. He's not happy about this. He doesn't like being, part of the exhibition. And for some reason, the husband wants to kill him, probably because he slept with a wife. And they just go in and trying to ruin his life. And by the end of it, you probably want to shoot yourself, because it's just fucking awful. There's a review on YouTube. There's probably the only review, and he points out about who's holding the camera, and that's my favorite bit of the review. So that's why I've nicked it and used it in this. So I just full disclosure, I'm not saying that who's holding the camera is my idea, but it is something that you do notice if you ever get to watch the film, and let's hope you never do.
So not a good experience.
No, not to watch, but not to work on either. So from day one, things just went wrong. We were filming out in a manor house out in Oxfordshire, and we would have to drive all the way from London to there and back. And the first day we fell behind schedule. They had this elaborate gag where the husband, the artist, is shooting at statues, and so they had to plant squibs on a statue and all this kind of stuff, and that was taking forever. This is where I got introduced to the main actor, played by John Paul Gates, who at the time I didn't realise was also the producer of it. And there's a good reason why he's the producer, because he can't act.
Don't hold back, Simon. Say what you think.
I'm not going to hold back. I'm not going to hold back. I mean, he is an awful actor. Well, I mean, I'm going to say this stuff because I have to say, at the end of the day, the filmmakers on this shoot treated their crew really badly.
Okay, I was going to say, fair point. I don't know. I mean, I've no idea if people are listening to this stuff or not. But if they are, and if there's somebody out there, that's maybe interested in breaking into the industry or whatever, could you explain? Because obviously I know, but they might not know out there. So as a runner, what was it exactly that you had to do on this film?
Well, I started off as a production runner. So the idea was so that I had a car. And my first task was to bring crew to the location. So I actually had to drive into town, pick them up, and then drive them to the location out in Oxfordshire. So I literally would leave my house, drive into town, and then drive past my house to go back out. And all, so that was my first task. And then my second task was there to be like a second pair of hands. And go and get shopping if needs be, or help out, help the art department, help the lighting crew, help the camera department. I did all that kind of stuff, actually. I mean, it was, from that point of view, it was really good.
So did you learn things on this film? I mean, was it a worthwhile experience?
I will say that I learned how not to make a film.
Love it.
I learned so many lessons on that film about how not to, how not to make a film. So what started happening is, because people needed their expenses replaced every day, they would give you a check, and it soon off in the middle of the first week, we started being told not to cash them because they were bouncing. So people were, putting these into the bank, and of course they bounced, and of course the banks would charge them for it. So they were losing money straight away. There was one day where there was no food, and I actually went out and bought shopping, food for the cast and crew. I put £100 on my credit card.
Bloody hell.
Yes. And thankfully I was able to get that expense back, but there were some people who put money into that film who never saw it again. I was, the only reason why I was able to get that money back was because I was actually at one point driving the director around, so I could actually have a go at him. Could bend his ear about it. But yeah, so what was happening was we were falling behind schedule. They had written up a schedule where they had hoped for the best, that they hoped that everything would run like clockwork, and of course it wasn't. And the end of the second day, we finished about 2 a.m, and they wanted us back there at 7 o'clock. The crew held a meeting and turned around to the director and said, no, we're not doing that.
They'd not heard of a turnaround, clearly.
We'd have to leave 2 a.m, get back to London 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then have to get back there for 7. It ain't happening. People want their sleep. So we came back that evening. So what happened the first week was we were behind schedule, and they had scheduled this stunt, which I mentioned in the synopsis, about the tramp being knocked over. They had a stuntman to play the tramp, and they also had a stunt car. So they lost both of them because of this falling behind schedule. So what they had to do was run around and try and find another stuntman and another stunt car. Found a stuntman, couldn't find a stunt car. So the first AD came up with the bright idea, I'll rent a car. So he went out and he rented a BMW Z3. Brand new car at the time. And so, yeah, we set up along this country road. It's not blocked off. That was one thing that was very strange. We didn't have runners with walkie-talkies blocking the road off, so any cars, any traffic could have come along that way. The other thing was they had wrecked a field to film from. Now, the guy had told them that we could film up the far end, but not to film amongst his crop. The director didn't like that, so he moved the camera into the middle of his crops. And of course, when the farmer came along and saw this, he was very pissed off. And this actually became a trait throughout the rest of the film, where the director pissed off every location we went to, because they would always fall behind schedule, or they had promised them something and it didn't quite work out, or I don't know, I think one time there was something got damaged. But anyway, so getting ready to film this stunt. So they do a rehearsal. It works fine. The guy rolls over the bonnet. Everything's happy. Brilliant. Director wants to do another rehearsal. The gaffer goes, maybe we should roll on this one. Yeah. You know it's going to happen. Everybody's in position. Roll camera, speed, clapperboard, action. Car comes along. Guy rolls over, crack. He smashes the windscreen and dents the bonnet. The first AD's face is a picture. It was like all his blood drained out of his face. He looked like that painting of the face with the wide mouth and the hands.
Yes.
they then filmed the stunt again and again and again, but they had to still use the same car with the smashed windscreen and dented bonnet. So there wasn't many angles they could use. So they get the shot, and we move out, and the first AD is busily phoning up BMW dealerships and garages to see if anybody can repair it. And of course where we are, most places close early on a Friday and not open at the weekend. So he couldn't find anything, and he was absolutely shitting himself. He didn't know what to do. So while that's happening, back at the country manor, the art department are packing all the props away. They had borrowed everything from various sort of I don't know, shops and stuff. You know, they hadn't paid to keep this stuff. They were just borrowing it or renting it. And so the art department packed them all into the back of a van because they had promised that he'd bring them back at the end of the Friday. And they drove off with it. So the director decided that he'd call the police.
Oh dear. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
This sounds like movie hell.
Oh, it is. So he called the police on his own art department. Yeah. So I've been told. I'm going to say this now. Nothing happened. I don't believe the police followed them up, or it was just like a threat. But that was what, as a crew, we heard that he'd phoned the police on them. Yes. And this is when we started to have crew quitting on us. We actually had a hairdresser there. Very nice girl, vegan. We also had a catering department. The guy the chef who was running it, he looked like he'd be at home at a Greasy Spoon cafe. And he thought it was his challenge in life to make a vegan eat meat.
Okay.
She got fed up pretty quickly and left. Lovely girl. I'm sure she's gone on to bigger and better things. But that was the end of the first week.
Bloody hell.
And then, yeah, so second week we moved back to London. They still had stuff to film back at the country manor in Oxford, but they had to, they had a location, they needed to film there. And so I started driving the director around, and I started picking up the actors. Now, I had to go and pick up an actor from Paddington Station. But instead of driving back to the location, I had to go and pick somebody else up at the same time. And of course, she lived in Cricklewood. So I drove this poor guy from Paddington to Cricklewood and then to the location. Once we arrived there, it was like, you're late. Yeah, well, I was told to do this, which I did. And, I was only following instructions. So again, they're already behind schedule. And this time it's my fault. Not much I can do about it. So at the end of the day, I had to drive them both back. What they didn't tell me was I didn't need to come back at all. So I drove back to the location and everybody gone.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, this is what people don't realise is, particularly low budget independent filmmakers sometimes, is making films or any type of production like this is difficult under the best of conditions. It's difficult, right? So when you really don't have the resources that you perhaps need to bring the script to life, that's the point where you have to sort of start to try and use your imagination a little bit and find other ways of doing it. And the absolute key thing is you can't get stuff done without people, and you've got to treat people right. I mean, you've got to, at the very least, feed people and let people have a proper amount of sleep and turn around between shoot dates. And it sounds like that these guys made every sort of schoolboy error that there is out there so far from what you've told. So
yeah,
and I bet it gets worse, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's what kept happening was, it was just error after error. They just didn't seem to care. And what turned out to be was that they were making this film so that they could go and make another film.
Right.
And so this was just a means to an end. I read a story on IMDb. I'm not sure if it's still there, by the actual script writers who had sold the script to them, and said that that their script had been gutted. That all the good stuff that had been in there was gone. Absolutely just taken out, and just what was left of the script was just the bare bones, the basics, just so that they could make something. I mean, what just happened was that it got worse, and people started leaving, and they just fell behind. I left after the third week. I stayed for 3 weeks, and that was it. I got fed up, and then people I knew there was one or two still working it, because they just really wanted to get that deferred payment that they believed they were going to, get the film made. I mean, the only thing I can say is I worked with Christopher Biggins, who was lovely and probably the best thing in the whole film.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. That's saying something if you can say that Christopher Biggins steals the show.
I love the fact you've actually got that recorded.
Oh dear, but it was an experience where I learned how not to make a film. And
well, sometimes that can be good as well. I mean, there are an awful lot of people out there trying it, but unfortunately, there's an awful lot of people out there that don't know what they're doing. You've got to kind of learn the basics first, and certainly if you're producing a film, and you're having to deal with a small budget, you have to make sure that first of all, things are done safely, safety first, yeah. But also,
yes. Yeah.
I mean, that stunt sounds like horrendous straight away, what was going on there. But also, you've got to make sure in your budget that you allow for enough food and water and supplies like that to keep the cast and crew going, because without them, you don't have a movie.
And we're not talking about poor people either. I mean, these are guys who had money.
Always the way.
And they just, they weren't willing to spend it or put the correct amount in. As I say, I found out later that they were it was a film that they were making so they could make another film, something that they actually had passion in. And this was just a means to an end. And of course, at the end of the day, that's not going to make a great film if that's your aim. You want to, if you're making a film, you want to make it because it's something that you feel you have to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You've got to be passionate about it. Otherwise, what's the point? Yeah. Particularly if money isn't involved, then why bother? Either it's a story you're passionate about and you want to tell, or that you want to learn, to use something or try something. Those are the reasons to do it. And it sounds like these guys, I mean, I don't know any of them, but it sounds to me like they were doing this for completely the wrong reasons from what you're saying, which is a shame.
Yeah. I mean, the other stories I heard once I left was that the location manager actually had to break into their offices to because they got kicked out because they couldn't afford the bill. And so he actually broke in to get something that they had left in there. A van got scratched down the one side because the guy driving it, didn't have a license. Oh God, there were so many stories. It was literally after I left, it was like you come in every week to Panico, and you'd hear what the latest thing had happened on set. I mean, I hear they got a replacement runner who was just very delightful and was so disruptive and got in everybody's faces, and also the fact that when it came to mealtime that he'd force his way in front of everybody and go, I'm eating first. And I'm just like, wow, it sounds like a right nutter. But yeah, it's the end of the day. It took ages for the film to finally come out, and it wasn't very good. I will put a link up on the in the podcast notes to this video. Well worth checking out. Um, yeah, it's a terrible film, and just hope you never ever get to watch it. But the problem is just to be warned that there's people out there, and they are making films, and they're looking to exploit people in the worst kind of way. And if you find yourself on a shoot like that, walk, just leave it, because at the end of the day, it's not going to affect your professionalism because they're not professional. It's not going to affect your standing in the industry because they probably don't have connections in the industry, or that the industry is probably far bigger than it is just within that shoot. So if you're on a shoot and you don't like what's happening, if you feel like you're being treated badly, you can walk. And the thing is about deferred payment is you probably not see it.
Yeah, no, it is unlikely.
Avoid them.
Because so many people have to get paid first. So you end up right the way down the picking order. And, it's very unlikely that most of these films will make money back for some time anyway. So, it's no good banking on deferred payment, that's for sure.
I mean, I always make a point on my films and make it profit share. So the idea is that if the film makes profit, then you get a share of it instead of, putting you on a list of people where, you might get paid.
Yeah, no, that's kind of like the theatre approach, isn't it? The fringe theatre approach. And, that can, you that way you do at least have some chance, although it's still, sometimes small, but some chance of getting something. Whereas a deferred payment, unless you're, at the top of the pecking order, it's pretty unlikely, isn't it? So, yeah.
I mean, it happens to everybody. I always say film shoots are either the best experience or the worst experience. And for me, Coldfish was definitely the worst experience. But I learned a lot about it. I mean, during the week, I was working on that. And at weekends, I was making my own film. And once I finished shooting my own film, I decided to walk on that one because at the end of the day, it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. And it probably helped me making my film because then I wasn't stressing about it through the week because I was doing something else. And also just as I say, I learned how not to make a film. And it's probably the best lesson you could ever learn. Because at the end of the day, a lot of filmmakers now who start off as directors don't know what it's like to be crew. And they don't know what it's like to be on a set, be starving, tired, bored, unexcited, just those things that that members of the crew will go through, that they're doing for you, and just to have that appreciation. I mean, I was on a shoot last week, and the DOP was using one of those Ronin rigs. They're these sort of handheld gimbals.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so hot in there, and he was sweating buckets, and it's not light, with the camera and everything on there, it's not light, and every shot was using this device. So every chance I got, I was in there giving him water, because I'm a camera operator too, and I know what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
And just the fact, just to alleviate somebody's suffering under those conditions, because it's tough. It really is tough. And so this the least I could do, because I wasn't doing anything. I was helping with the lights. So once the lights are set up, that's my job done. And so anything to help. But that's only because I have empathy for that, because I've been in that position myself. And that's what I feel like a lot of directors and producers don't know, because they're not been in that position.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, in fact, it might have even been Finch, or it might tie into what our podcast. Was he the one that said that somebody famously said, you need to, if you're going to be a film director, you need to understand what everybody's job is on the set?
Oh, I think I mentioned that in the last podcast extra, and that was Spielberg.
Spielberg. Okay, well, you
Yeah,
can't get any better than that. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I
yeah.
mean, and it is true. You need to respect what everybody's doing and understand what everybody's doing, and you know, um, I always get kind of frustrated with those people that think because they've got a half decent camera and some editing software on their laptop or whatever that they're suddenly now a film director, and it's like, well, you got the tools to do it, but there's still a lot more to it, and you need to go away and do some research and have some idea of how it all works.
Well, my reply to that is that if you're in that situation, then don't get a big crew on board. Start off small.
You and a couple of mates or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it that way. It's fun.
Yeah.
Because if you've got, I mean, the thing is, the bigger the crew that gets, the more organized you have to be. You have to be so organized because you've got all those people, so you've got to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to make sure that everything's covered, that they get there on time, that everything's done safely, that you have enough time to do everything, because you forget that all that setting up takes up time. So if you are somebody who has a camera and a laptop, then just go out, have fun, do it with your mates, and just slowly build up to that point. But also just remember that they are human beings. You, as a director, you sometimes forget that you're not hungry because you're running on adrenaline. You've been planning this for ages, and this means so much to you, but to the gaffer, it may not mean anything at all. It might be just another job for him. And at the end of the day, all he's thinking about is when I'm going to get fed. So just keep that in mind when you're making films. And also, we always say, be prepared. Come there knowing what you're going to do. Don't be wasting people's time. Because that's one luxury you don't have. You never have enough time on a shoot. You need to get on. You need to get going, get these shots done, get people out of there, get it done. So preparation's the key, and don't have discussions about the shots or the mise en scene and stuff in the middle of a shoot.
I think it's important that you're sharing something like that, Simon, because it is important, and there are a lot of people out there doing it the wrong way. So yeah.
But just sort of say, if you're a filmmaker, then just think of people underneath you, and if you are crew, just remember that if you're not happy with the situation, just leave, and it won't affect your career at all. If anything, because at the end of the day, it'd probably be a film that people have not heard of, because when they look at your CV, it's the films or the projects that you have heard of is what they'll be interested in, and that would just be just another credit, or just don't list it.
Yeah. No, I hadn't heard of this one until you mentioned it, so yeah. All right.
But I think next week next time we'll talk about our own work and our own productions, because that's what we're really about, really, is sort of our own work.
Cool.
So ultimately, what all this working on other people's projects was our goal, is to make our own.
Absolutely.
So yes, I think next time we will be talking about our first projects.
Okay, can definitely do that. That's not a problem.
So if you want to sort of jump ahead and to be on the same level with us, I would recommend going to both our YouTube pages and watching our first shorts, which for me is Firepower.
Yeah, and for me is a film called Overpass, which is on the YouTube page.
So you've got some homework this time. Go out, watch those shorts, and then the next podcast extra, we will talk about them.
Lovely.
So, as I said, you can find my work on independentrunnings.com, which has Firepower there, or my YouTube channel, which the link is, well, if you go to YouTube and look for Independent Runnings, And Keith, how can we find your work?
Yeah, if you want to see Overpass, that is actually on YouTube now. So if you go to YouTube and put in British Isles, which is Eyles, as in the spelling of my surname, that will find a page with my films on there. And I believe Simon is also attaching a link to this cast as well.
Yes, I always do.
Thank you.
So you can follow us on Facebook at Movie Heaven, Movie Hell, and we're also on Twitter at Movie Heaven Hell.
All right. See you at the movies.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.